Hope you had a good 4th of July. I decided to celebrate the holiday by revisiting one of the most pure Americana films ever made, Forrest Gump. Let's talk about it. Welcome to Media Spectrum, where stories still matter. I'm your host Daniel, and today we are talking about Forrest Gump. So this is a movie that came out in 1994 when I was only 2 years old. So I wouldn't say it's before my time, it's literally in my time. It was too early for me to see it in movie theaters, but it's a film I saw from a fairly young age. And it's not a movie I like revisit every year or anything necessarily, but every 3, 4 years I end up revisiting. It's, a classic film. Back in the days when we had TV, which I'm old enough to remember, it was on TV all the time, so I would see, reruns of it and bits and pieces of it at different times. Even when I was in middle school, I was in orchestra and we had a concert one year where we did music from a few different big movies. So, like, we did the score from Jurassic Park, we did the score from Harry Potter, and this was one of the 4 or 5 movies we did some music from, was the main theme for this. It's a very pure Americana film. It's something almost everyone has seen. And it's a film with a very interesting legacy, I think. Even when it came out, it had some divisive reviews, but was overall, I think, pretty positively received. It won a bunch of Oscars. I would have to look up, which I'm not going to bother doing right now, exactly how many, but I know it got nominated for several, won several. It was one of Tom Hanks' big wins, of course. But as time has gone on, and especially amongst the younger generations, amongst millennials, Gen Z people, people my age and younger, it's been looked at more and more critically and cynically. And it's a weird case where I kind of get all the different interpretations about it. There are people who will say this is an anti war film. There are people who will say this is pure conservative propaganda. There are people who will say this is an attack on the hippie movement and on the social rights movements. Perhaps most of all, it's a very apolitical yet politically charged movie. It's following the just absurdly significant life of one special needs man as he lives through America and happens to get involved in all of these historical moments. I mean, all these important figures. He meets every president of his lifetime growing up, pretty much. And on the one hand, this is a very, very saccharine, nostalgia-based movie. I mean, it's so sappy it might give you type 3 diabetes. I get that argument for sure. It's very much meant to make you feel good and tug your heartstrings and make you long for simpler times and look at America through a very positive lens. And yet, there are moments of satire in there. There are moments of social commentary that are more critical than you might think at first. Like the fact that Forrest Gump, a special needs, mentally handicapped man, is perceived as a genius by his drill instructor because all he does is blindly follow orders without thought.
Go! What's your sole purpose in this army?
To do whatever you tell me, drill sergeant.
God damn it, Gump! You're a goddamn genius. That's the most outstanding answer I've ever heard. You must have a goddamn IQ of 160. You are goddamn gifted, Private Gump.
That's actually a pretty brutal commentary if you really stop and think about it for a moment. Or even the fact that throughout the movie, Forrest consistently interacts with these people, whether it's Elvis, John Lennon, the different presidents, only to moments later have them be killed in news footage.
Hard to imagine.
Well, it's easy if you try, Dick.
Some years later, that nice young man from England was on his way home to see his little boy and was signing some autographs for no particular reason at all. Somebody shot him.
It does not shy away from the fact that this whole late 20th century of America was a very turbulent time. I think maybe one of the most defining and telling moments of this whole movie is when Forrest ends up getting roped into this protest in Washington, D.C., and goes up to give a speech, and they pull the plug so you cannot hear a word he's saying, only to plug it in right at the end to hear him say,
That's all I have to say about that.
you know, the movie's very much trying not to take a side. And the thing is, when you try not to take a side, you kind of are taking a side. There's an argument to be made that when you're being neutral, you're really just supporting the status quo. And that a lot of times the movies that are not necessarily trying to be propaganda end up being the purest propaganda. But at the same time, from just a movie-making standpoint, this is a very well-done movie. The CGI special effects they used, both to create this false historical footage with Forrest Gump edited in, and even to digitally remove Lieutenant Dan's legs for the second half of the movie, was very ahead of its time. We don't even really think about it now, but it was impressive technology for then. The fact that this movie is so quotable.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates.
Run, Forrest! Run!
Gumbo, pan fried, deep fried, stir fried. There's pineapple shrimp, lemon shrimp, coconut shrimp.
I think this movie is maybe best viewed as a really good snapshot of its time and place. The mid-90s were a much more hopeful time than they are today. And I think that's a really key factor in interpreting this movie and understanding the context of what it meant and when it came out. And that there was a sense that, okay, the civil rights movement is done and succeeded. We're doing better now. Everything's progressing. It looks like everything is up. Of course, by the time you get to the early 2000s, the tone had changed rather significantly. And I don't think you really could do a movie like this today. Or if you did, like imagine if you did something like a follow-up that was set from the 90s through like the 2010s. It would probably be a much more cynical, much more dark, much more sarcastic movie because that's the time it came in. One of the things I do want to praise for sure in this movie, though, is the acting of it. Now, I know some people criticize Tom Hanks' accent for not necessarily being a pure Southern accent, but what he was trying to do was really mimic the young Forrest actor and match his voice.
What's wrong with your legs? Oh, nothing at all, thank you. My legs are just fine and dandy.
And match his very particular regional accent, while at the same time trying to make himself sound kind of mentally slow. It's a very fine tightrope to play a special needs character, as Tropic Thunder is so gently addressed.
Everybody knows you never go full retard.
But Tom Hanks does a really good job walking this tightrope and playing someone who is slow, and yet it's never really unbelievable that he could be doing some of the things. Well, it might be unbelievable at times, like the whole smiley face shirt, but it's not because he's mental needs. I think maybe my personal favorite is Gary Sinise as Lieutenant Dan. Not just because he shares my name, but I mean, I do relate to the character a lot. I won't go into my own personal history too much here, and I've never been in the military or anything like that, but I've had my own issues in life of cynicism and losing faith and trying to find peace in the world after losing faith in things. Again, my experiences are much paler in comparison to the tribulations Lieutenant Dan goes through. But there is something really human about his arc, and it's nice to see him come to a happy place at the end. At the same time, if I stop and think about it more cynically, well, he falls ass backwards into being a multimillionaire, if not a billionaire, possibly by the end of this film. So of course he's happier. And again, like, this movie reinforces so many American ideals, like money and starting businesses and financial success being one of the biggest rewards in life, or one of the biggest signs you've made it and have done something important with yourself. I, as a more minimalistic person who am trying to lead a very simple life and would rather live on a lower income in many ways, frankly, I don't really vibe with that. I think there's definitely criticism to be made about that. And yet I don't really think about that while I'm watching the movie. I think about that after the movie. While I'm watching the movie, it all feels very nice. And I think maybe that's a good encapsulation of why I feel kind of mixed about this film, because my heart and my brain are at war with each other. My brain wants to be very critical, wants to be very analytical, wants to break down so many ways this movie is saccharine and corny and reinforces some really negative ideologies, I think. But while I'm watching it, I really do enjoy it. While I'm watching it, it does feel good. It is painting a ridiculous fantasy picture, but sometimes it feels nice to get lost in a fantasy picture. Kind of got lost on a little tangent there, but back to the performances. Robin Wright, of course, as Jenny, is one of the more controversial aspects of this film for sure. Because with her, they just paint the counterculture movement in like the worst light possible. And the thing is, there absolutely are people like Jenny who went through very negative rides, and there were negative aspects to the counterculture movement, to be sure. It was not perfect. But, you know, this movie completely kind of dismisses the Black Panthers, makes them almost look delusional. You know, takes the whole hippie movement and does not really analyze their anti-war critiques at all. And then Sally Field is very nice as Forrest's mom. I don't really have anything much to say about her because we don't see her that much in the movie, and she's more of almost a symbol than anything else. But she does very well in her role, and she feels like a very good, loving mom who's just trying to do the best for her son. Also, young Haley Joel Osment in this. I forget that he's in this movie, and yet, yeah, Haley Joel Osment, one of the most famous child actors of all time. I think this may have been his first role, or if not his first, one of his very first, where he's very charming as young Forrest Jr. Although, again, when you think about the implications of things, the fact that Jenny has AIDS and has Forrest Jr. and then marries Forrest, if you actually stop and think about this at the end, did Forrest Jr. have AIDS? Was he born with AIDS? Or then even more likely, she must have given Forrest AIDS because they got married, they had sex. Like, does Forrest Gump have AIDS? Does he even know? Again, like, when I think about this movie critically, so much of it is very easy to dissect and pick apart. And yet it's a rare movie where I don't even want to do that, and I usually really like doing that. That's part of why I've made this channel. But it is a movie that, for better and for worse, it is as purely American as a slice of apple pie. It is funny, it is wholesome, while at the same time having some surprisingly adult humor in it. It's anti-war, and yet it kind of does celebrate the military at the same time. It refuses to take a stand, and in its refusal does just support the status quo. So ultimately, this is a movie. I don't hate it. I don't think I can say I love it. I appreciate it, and I think if nothing else, it is very valuable as a historical capstone. If you're significantly younger than me and were born into the 21st century, it's probably good for a historical standpoint to at least give you some frame of reference for things, and particularly for giving you just a look at the general sort of worldview or American view of the early 90s. It is very, very much a snapshot of the time and place that it came out, and again, for better and for worse, really is a reflection of the time and values in which it came out. So that's about all I have to say about this one. Remember that a like and subscribe really helps this channel grow, and I'll see you guys next week. Until then, stay sane, stay human.